The clock in the hallway struck 11:47 p.m. The sound was sharp, almost violent, breaking the stillness of the house. Claire flinched, though she had been waiting for it, listening for it, counting the minutes until it came. She sat curled into the corner of the living room sofa, a blanket pulled up tight under her chin. Outside, the winter wind scraped against the windows, carrying with it the faint rattle of bare branches. The old house groaned with every gust, its walls shifting like they were alive. But it wasn't the house that made her hands shake. It was the whisper, the one she had heard an hour ago. At first, she thought it was the wind. A soft brush of sound, slipping through the cracks in the wood, a trick of her tired mind. But the words had been too clear, too human. Don't. Look. She hadn't even realized she'd dropped the mug of tea until it shattered on the floor, splattering her. Slippers. She'd stared at the darkened hallway beyond the living room, her breath stuck in her chest, waiting for something, anything to move. Nothing had. The silence that followed was worse. Claire told herself she was imagining it. She was stressed, overtired, and vulnerable. It had been a long week. Her parents had left that morning for an overnight trip out of town, trusting her to manage the house alone. She'd been fine with it at first. After all, she was 22 now, old enough to stay by herself, old enough to be trusted. But now, in the dark, she felt impossibly small again, like a child who had just realized the monster under her bed might be real. Her phone sat on the coffee table. She'd picked it up a dozen times, her thumb hovering over the screen, ready to call someone. Anyone. But who would she call? Her parents would panic. Her friends would laugh. The police would think she was drunk or delirious. She swallowed, hard. Another creak echoed from upstairs. This one was different. Slow, deliberate, like the sound of someone's weight shifting on the floorboards. Her heart slammed in her chest. No, she whispered to herself. No, no, no. The blanket slid from her shoulders as she stood, barefoot, straining her ears. The silence stretched. Then, creak. Right above her, the ceiling seemed to pulse with it, like something heavy was moving across the upstairs hallway. Claire stumbled backward, her throat tight, her whole body trembling. She couldn't breathe, she couldn't think. All she could do was stare up at the ceiling, willing the noise to stop. But it didn't. Step. 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 Slow. Dragging, almost hesitant, as though whoever or whatever was up there wanted her to hear. Her stomach turned cold. She wasn't supposed to be alone. The memory hit her then, sharp and sudden, her mother's warning before leaving. Make sure all the doors are locked, and don't forget the upstairs window. Your father swears he fixed the latch, but just check, okay? Had she checked? Her head spun. She couldn't remember. She had walked through the house earlier, closing windows against the cold. But had she locked the one in the back bedroom? The one that always stuck? Her mouth went dry. The creaking stopped. Silence. But somehow that was worse. Claire forced herself to move, slowly, like if she was too fast it would draw attention. She picked up her phone, clutching it so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her legs shook as she tiptoed to the hallway. The staircase loomed in front of her, steep and shadowed, its top lost in darkness. She stared at it, frozen, until her phone screen lit up with a sudden vibration. A text. Her best friend, Emily. Emily. Are you still awake? Relief flooded her chest so fast it nearly made her cry. Her fingers scrambled over the keyboard. Claire, yes, I think someone's in the house. The 3 little dots popped up almost immediately. Then it disappeared. Then came back again. Emily, stop. Don't joke like that. Claire, I'm not joking. I heard them upstairs, the dots again. It's been a long time. Finally, Emily. Then why are you texting me? Call the police. Claire's throat tightened. Her thumb hovered over the call button. But then, another text appeared. Emily. Wait. Don't call yet. Claire froze. She read it again, her stomach twisting. Claire. What? Why not? This time, the reply came instantly. Emily. Because it's not safe. You'll make it angry. Claire's chest caved in. Her breath caught. Her hands shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Emily didn't know. Emily couldn't know. She hadn't told her about the whisper. She hadn't told anyone. So how? Her screen lit up again. Emily, don't go upstairs, promise me. Claire stared at the words until her vision blurred. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The house groaned again above her, and for the first time she realized the footsteps weren't moving randomly. They were moving toward the stairs. Claire stumbled back. Her hand clamped over her mouth to stifle a scream. Her phone buzzed again. Emily, it's almost there. The shadows at the top of the staircase seemed to deepen, as if they were thickening into something solid. Her vision swam. Her body screamed at her to run, but she couldn't move. She could only stare at the stairs, waiting for something, anything, to appear. Her phone buzzed once more. She forced herself to look, and what she saw nearly made her collapse. The message didn't say it was from Emily anymore. It said, unknown. Number, stop looking. The next morning, the house felt different. Too quiet, as if the walls were waiting for her to speak first. She sat at the edge of her bed, clutching the phone that she had left on her nightstand all night, hoping for a message, a call, something to prove that last night had been her imagination. But the phone was empty, silent. She told herself that if there had been someone in the house, she would have heard more than whispers. She would have heard footsteps, seen shadows, something tangible. Whispers didn't just drift through walls. They belonged to people. And yet when she replayed the memory, she wasn't even sure if the voice she'd heard had come from the hall or from inside her own head. Still, she avoided the upstairs hallway. She avoided looking at the door she'd left open. She avoided remembering the shape she thought she'd seen standing at the bottom of the stairs when she first woke up in the night. By mid-afternoon, the silence was unbearable. She turned on the TV, blasting it too loud just to fill the emptiness. But every laugh track and every cheerful commercial grated on her nerves. The noise wasn't enough to drown out the memory of that whisper. It was around 3 when she noticed something strange. She had left a mug on the kitchen counter the night before. She remembered because she had been too tired to wash it, but now the mug is gone. She checked the sink, the dishwasher, and the trash bin. Nothing. The mug wasn't anywhere. Her stomach twisted. Maybe she had moved it without thinking. Maybe she had already washed it and forgotten. She told herself it was nothing. Just fatigue, just paranoia. But when she opened the cupboard, there it was. Sitting neatly on the top shelf far back, as if someone had deliberately hidden it there. Her knees almost buckled. She lived alone. No one had been in the house. No one should have touched that mug. She slammed the cupboard shut and whispered, out loud as if the house itself could hear her, "Stop it. Stop messing with me." The words hung in the air, swallowed by silence. That night she made a plan. She wasn't going to sleep easily. She knew that. But she wanted proof. If there was something or someone in the house, she needed to know. She set up her phone on the dresser in her bedroom, angled toward the door, recording video. She told herself she'd wake up in the morning, laugh at her paranoia, delete the footage, and move on with her life. But that's not what happened. Around 2 in the morning, she jolted awake again. The air felt heavy, like the pressure before a thunderstorm. She reached for her phone but stopped when she noticed the bedroom door. She had closed it. She remembered closing it, locking it even. But now it stood open, just a crack. Enough for darkness to spill in from the hallway like ink. Her breathing grew shallow. She whispered to herself, "It's fine. Just check the recording. It's fine." Her hands trembled as she unlocked the phone. The video showed her sleeping. The door was closed. She fast-forwarded. Hours passed with nothing but her tossing under the covers. Then, around 2, the image froze her blood. The door opened, slowly, without a sound. And in the thin line of hallway darkness, something moved. Not a clear figure, not a face she could recognize, just the shape of a shoulder, the outline of something human. Standing there, watching. She clamped a hand over her mouth, biting down on a scream. She couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. The figure didn't come inside. It just stood in the doorway. Minutes passed. The recording showed her still asleep, unaware. Then, as if it had been satisfied, the shadowy shape pulled the door almost shut again, leaving only the faintest crack. The video ended. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her mind screamed at her to run, to get out of the house. But her body refused to move. She just sat there frozen, watching the door in real life, the same thin crack now staring back at her. The whisper came again, soft, teasing, right by her ear. "You're not alone." By morning, she wasn't sure if she had slept at all. She left the lights on until dawn. She checked every corner of the house, every closet, under every bed. Nothing. The house was empty, except it wasn't, because on the kitchen table, laid neatly beside her phone, was the mug again. The same mug. Clean, dry, and waiting. She stared at it until her vision blurred. Whoever, whatever, was in her house wasn't just toying with her. It was letting her know, and with cruel patience, that it could move freely, that it could reach her no matter where she hid, and worse, it wanted her to know it. She stopped eating properly. She jumped at every creak, every knock of the pipes. She no longer bothered pretending. This was her imagination. Something was in the house with her, and it didn't care if she knew. 2 nights later, the torment escalated. She had just fallen into a restless half-sleep when the sound of footsteps on the stairs dragged her awake. Not creaks, not the house settling. Real footsteps, heavy, measured, climbing. She sat up in bed, heart in her throat, staring at the door. This time, it wasn't closed. She had given up trying to keep it shut. The steps reached the top of the staircase. Stopped. And then, slowly, they began moving down the hallway toward her room. She couldn't scream, couldn't move. The paralysis was worse than fear. She was trapped in her own body, forced to listen as each step grew closer. When the footsteps stopped just outside her door, she thought her heart would tear itself apart. The silence stretched so long she almost believed she had imagined it. Then came the sound, a breath. Low, slow, inhumanly close. She felt it brush her ear even though the doorway was across the room. Cold, damp, wrong. Her body finally broke free, and she screamed. A raw, desperate sound that tore through the house. She grabbed her phone and bolted, racing down the stairs barefoot, nearly falling as she stumbled toward the front door. The whole way, she felt it. The presence behind her, close enough to reach out, close enough to touch. She slammed the door behind her and ran into the street, sobbing, clutching the phone like it was her last lifeline. When she finally dared to look back, the house stood silent. Dark. Ordinary. But in the upstairs window, she swore she saw it. A shape. Watching. And this time, she knew it wasn't going to stop. The first thing that jarred her awake was not the sound itself, but the vibration that ran through the floorboards beneath her bed. A low thud. Not from upstairs, not from outside, but from below. Her body went stiff under the blanket. She told herself it was the heating system, maybe the pipes rattling. But this house didn't even have central heating, just a small furnace in the basement that had been out of use for years. Then came another sound. Click, 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 like someone slowly dragging their nails across metal. She tried not to breathe. Her eyes flicked toward the bedroom door, where a sliver of orange light from the hallway lamp stretched across the wooden floor. The house had always been too big for her. Creaking stairs, old wallpaper peeling at the edges, a basement she refused to enter. Her parents were gone for the weekend, leaving her alone. Normally, she would have welcomed the solitude. But now every shadow seemed to shift. Every silence seemed too heavy. The noise came again, sharper this time. Knuckles rapping against wood. The basement door. She pulled herself out of bed, bare feet hitting the cold floor, her chest tightening with every step down the hall. She could already see the basement door at the end. White paint chipped and a rusty lock that hadn't been touched in years. Her mind screamed, "Don't go near it." But the sound was pulling her, taunting her, daring her to face it. She reached the door. Her hand hovered just above the old brass doorknob, shaking. Then, sudden silence. For a moment she thought maybe she had imagined it. That is, until the lock, a lock that should have been on her side, shifted from inside. Click. Her stomach dropped. Someone, or something, was on the other side. She stumbled back, nearly tripping on the hallway rug. Her pulse was so loud she thought it would wake the neighbors. But then came a whisper, faint, almost too soft to hear, yet unmistakable. "Please." A voice, a man's. Low, weak, but filled with desperation, her whole body locked up. "Who's there?" she whispered, though her throat was dry and her voice cracked. "Don't leave me here. Please." Her chest heaved. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Her mind raced back through everything her parents had ever told her about the basement. How it was unsafe. How she should never go near it. How there was nothing down there but junk. Lies. "Who are you?" she demanded louder this time. Silence. Then, after a long pause, the voice whispered again, broken and trembling. "They'll come back soon. Don't let them lock me in again." Her knees nearly gave out. Whoever it was, they had been down there for God knows how long. But that was impossible. She had lived here for years. She had never once heard this voice. Unless the sudden scrape of movement jolted her back. Something slammed against the other side of the door, rattling the frame. She screamed, staggering backward. The lock held, but only barely. And then came the sound that truly broke her. Laughter. Not the laughter of a victim. Not the laughter of someone desperate to escape. A slow, mocking chuckle that curled under her skin and rooted itself deep in her bones. "You shouldn't be awake," the voice said. Her body moved before her mind could. She sprinted back to her room, slamming the door shut and fumbling with the lock. Her hands trembled as she pressed her back against the wood, listening. The house fell silent again. Too silent. She wanted to call someone. Her parents, the police, anyone. But her phone was dead. She hadn't charged it before bed. The charger sat uselessly on her nightstand, mocking her. Her eyes darted to the window, 2 stories up. If she jumped, she'd break her legs. If she stayed, she might not live long enough to care. What should I do? Her breath caught when she heard the creak of a floorboard in the hallway. Not the basement, the hallway. Something was moving upstairs. She crouched down, peering under the tiny crack at the bottom of her bedroom door. For a long, suffocating moment, nothing moved. Then, shadow. Feet. Slowly, deliberately stepping closer. The breath hitched in her throat. A whisper slithered under the crack as though the voice was crouched right outside. "You opened the door." Her blood froze. She hadn't touched the lock. She had only heard it shift. But somehow it was open now. "I can see you," the voice hissed. She clamped both hands over her mouth to stop the scream clawing its way up her throat. The doorknob rattled violently. She threw herself against the door, praying the weak lock would hold. The knob twisted harder, then stopped. A pause. Then, slowly, the footsteps retreated down the hall. The night dragged on in unbearable silence. She didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe too loudly. Her body ached from staying pressed against the door. Her mind tried to convince her she had imagined it all, but her heart knew better. And then came the final sound, just before dawn, the front door opening, not slamming. Not forced, just opening. She listened as slow footsteps trailed out into the yard. The door creaked shut again. By the time her parents returned later that morning, she was still crouched against her door, trembling and pale, unable to form words. When her father went to check the basement, the lock was hanging loose, the door wide open, but the basement was empty. No footprints, no belongings, no sign of anyone ever being there, all except for one thing scratched into the inside of the basement door. Next time she won't escape. The silence was deafening. Claire stood in the middle of the ruined living room, the broken lamp flickering, one last time before plunging the house into complete darkness. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her throat raw from screaming, her hands trembling as though her own skin was rejecting her body. And then, she heard it again. That whisper. Not a voice outside the window, not a creak on the stairs. No, this time, it came from inside her own head. You let them in. Claire pressed her palms over her ears, shaking her head violently. No, I didn't. Her eyes darted to the family photo on the floor. Glass shattered, her father's smiling face cut across with cracks that looked too much like scars. Her father, gone in a robbery. Her mother, lost to grief. And now, after all these years, Claire finally saw the truth. None of it had been an accident. The thing in this house, whatever had whispered to her as a child, whatever had grown in the walls in the silence, it had been feeding, and her family had been offering. The door creaked open slowly. Claire. It was Jordan. His face was pale, blood trickling down from a cut near his temple. His voice trembled. We need to get out of here. Now. She backed away, because she saw it. The shadow behind him wasn't his. It clung to his shoulders like a parasite, stretching long and jagged across the floor, moving before he did. Jordan. Her voice broke. Don't come any closer. He frowned, confusion twisting into something darker. Claire, it's me. Why are you looking at me? Like that? Her heart pounded so violently she thought it would burst. This wasn't Jordan anymore, it was wearing him. And suddenly, every memory crashed back. The nights he had convinced her to ignore the whispers, the way he had begged her to return to the house, the look in his eyes when she first told him about the things scratching inside the walls. He'd known. He'd always known. The whisper slithered through her mind again. He brought you back. He gave you to me. Claire's stomach dropped. No, she whispered aloud. Her knees weakened, nearly giving out. Jordan? Tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't. Jordan's expression flickered, and for the briefest second the boy she once trusted appeared. Guilt, pain, regret, all tangled in his eyes. But then his lips curled into something else. Something colder. You wouldn't understand, Claire. You were never supposed to survive that night. None of you were. But you were chosen. Her breath caught. Chosen? For what? He stepped closer. To be the last. The floorboards groaned violently, as if the house itself was breathing with anticipation. The air grew colder, so cold her teeth chattered. Shadows spilled from the corners, crawling like ink across the walls, converging toward her. Jordan's body stiffened. His mouth opened, but the voice that came out wasn't his anymore. It was a chorus of whispers. Stay with us. You belong here. Claire's scream tore through the dark. She ran. Her bare feet pounded against the wooden floor as she sprinted up the stairs, the house shuddering with every step. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away. Behind her, Jordan's body followed, stumbling unnaturally, dragged by something unseen. His head snapped at odd angles, his voice splitting between pleading and command. Claire, don't. Leave me, Claire. She didn't look back. At the end of the hallway, she threw herself into her old bedroom. The door slammed shut. She shoved the dresser against it, chest heaving, body trembling with adrenaline. The whispers were louder now, bleeding through the cracks in the wood, seeping into her bones. You never left. You never left. You never left. Her reflection in the cracked mirror caught her eye, and her blood froze, because her reflection wasn't moving. Claire stumbled backward, colliding with the bed. The reflection tilted its head slowly, eyes dark, lips curling into a knowing smile. You left me here. Now, I'm taking you back. The mirror shattered with a deafening crack. Shards scattered across the floor like teeth. From the broken pieces, hands, thin, pale, jagged, began to crawl out. She screamed again, kicking wildly, shoving herself into the farthest corner of the room. Stop! Leave me alone! The whispers only grew hungrier. And then, just as the hands reached her, the house went silent. The silence was worse than the whispers. Her heart thundered in her ears. Every breath echoed like a scream. She waited, frozen, unable to move. And then faintly, she heard it, her mother's voice. Claire, honey, it's over. Come home. Her chest cracked open with grief. Tears streamed down her face. She wanted, so desperately, to believe it, to collapse into her mother's arms and let it all fade away. But she knew better. She wasn't a child anymore. You're not her, she screamed, fury tearing through her fear. You took her from me. And something changed. For the first time, the house recoiled. The shadows shrank. The whispers faltered, scattering like startled insects. Claire rose slowly, her entire body trembling, but her voice steady. You fed on my family. You fed on my fear. But not anymore. Her eyes darted to the shards of the broken mirror on the floor. Without thinking, she grabbed the largest piece, its edge jagged, gleaming faintly in the dark. Her reflection moved inside the shard. Lips, whispering words she couldn't hear. And Claire, with every ounce of rage and grief inside her, drove the shard into the wall where the shadows were thickest. The house shrieked, not the creak of wood, not the groan of old foundations, but a scream, a howl of something ancient and starving and furious. Jordan's body crumpled outside the door, lifeless, the shadow ripped clean from him. The whispers dissolved into silence. The air lightened, the crushing weight lifting from her chest. For the first time in years, Claire could breathe. She didn't remember leaving the house. She didn't remember stumbling barefoot down the cracked driveway, her hands still bleeding from the glass. All she remembered was standing in the road at dawn, watching the house collapse in on itself, as if it had never existed at all. And for the first time since she was a little girl, the silence felt safe. 1 year later, Claire sat by the window of her small apartment, coffee cooling in her hands. The nightmares still came sometimes, whispers echoing in the dark, her reflection, smiling when she didn't, but she was still here, alive. She thought often about Jordan, about the boy who had once been her closest friend, and how betrayal had carved deeper scars than any monster could. But even so, she had learned to live with it, because the truth was simple, and it stayed with her like a brand. Sometimes, surviving doesn't mean winning. It just means refusing to let the dark keep you. Claire lifted her gaze to the rising sun, her lips parting with a whisper of her own. I'm still here. And for the first time, the dark didn't whisper back. The end.